Okay, so I'm filming at the beach today. I thought it'd be really nice. It's a glorious day. There's no cloud at all in the sky, and as you can see, I'm in the relatively quiet part of the beach, but people are already going in swimming. It's quite early in the morning, but this is the quietest part of the beach. So it gets much busier when it gets towards the pier. You can see the pier there, and the other side of the pier as well. Yeah, I thought it'd be nice to film here. And what I'm filming is basically some recommendations to start your journey into science fiction. So, Alex, Alex Unabridged, fantastic channel, I'll link it below, has been doing this project where he's been starting science fiction for the first time. I think over a period of a year he's been doing it so far. And he's had some advice from Troy Treadup, who is another fantastic channel, which I'll link below. And it just made me think, well, people have done this video before, but there's still people thinking, how do I get into science fiction? You know, because they find it intimidating. And I don't think they need to find it intimidating. I think the reason why they find it intimidating is there's lots of hard sci-fi out there, which is really like based on really like intense physics that, like something like the three-body problem, which people say they read it but don't quite understand it. And why would you want to read something you don't understand, you know? So I get that. I get that that as a genre, it can have a reputation of being intimidating. But there's lots of science fiction that's not intimidating. And what I'm going to show you are books that you would understand, but are brilliant books. They're literally, they're all part of my favourite books. So, yeah, they're all included in my favourite books. And I'm not going to call them entry-level science fiction because I think that's such a dumb way of describing books, and these books and any books that are science fiction anyway, because it is a reference to the fact that some books are so scientifically complicated that you might need to sort of warm up to them, or you might need, they might be I can't think of the word, but a book where something that you develop a taste for it. Can't think of the word. Oh, it's ridiculous. But anyway, that's not. I don't think that's the right way of approaching books anyway, because there are great books out there, which these are examples of that work regardless of whether you've read before or not. So anyway. I'm going to talk about these, but what I'm going to talk about first is just in general, one way that I got into it as a child that I think, as a teenager, I guess, that would work for anyone, I think, is to start with novelizations. So novelizations are a great way to get into the genre. Andy Foster is someone who's built his career on writing tons and tons of novels. He's written hundreds. And you know, if you've got a favourite science fiction film, or you've got a film that you know you absolutely love, then you could start with a novelisation of that film. Sometimes that can get you into the transferring that idea of watching science fiction into reading science fiction. I think most people watch some kind of science fiction, so it's just that idea of transferring it to the page, really, isn't it? So yeah, you could do that just to start off with as a general point. But specific books. So I'm going to start with Dogs of War by Adrian Tchaikovsky. An absolutely brilliant book. It's not massively long. It's got some really good comments in it about war. It's got a great plot that's based around these robotic animals. There's a dog called Rex that's at the centre of it, and it explores that idea of dog's relationship with man, which is you know, Rex is wrestling with the fact that he wants to be a good dog and obey the masters, which are directing him to do these things militaristically, but he can't quite reconcile that with his morality, and it's just brilliant. So yeah, Dogs of War, Adrian Tchaikovsky, is a really good book that may be your first proper science fiction book. Another one, Lock-In by John Scalzi. So this is really cool. So spurred by, I'll tell you, I'll give you a bit of background of it. 15 years from now, a new virus sweeps the globe. Most of those afflicted experience nothing worse than fever and headaches. A few suffer acute meningitis, creating the largest medical crisis in history, and 1% find themselves locked in, fully awake and aware but unable to move or respond to stimulus. Spurred by grief and the sheer magnitude of the suffering, America undertakes a massive scientific initiative. Nothing can fully restore the locked in, but 2 new technologies emerge to help. One is a virtual reality environment, the Agora, where the locked in can interact with other humans, and the second is the discovery that a few rare individuals have brains that are receptive to being controlled by others, allowing the locked in to occasionally use their bodies as if they are their own. The skill is quickly regulated, licensed, bonded and controlled. Nothing can go wrong. Certainly nobody would be tempted to misuse it for murder. Yeah. It's a kind of a police procedural book with a science fiction kind of concept around it. It's really good. So John Scalzi's Locked In could be another one. Lock In could be another one. Let's give a fantastic, probably my favourite example of time travel, and this is Ken Grimwood's Replay. This is a really, really good book, and some of it's kind of heartbreaking. Especially if you're a parent, I think it's a fantastic book. Jeff Winston was 43 and trapped in a tepid marriage and a dead-end job, waiting for that time when he could be truly happy. When he died, and when he woke up, and then he woke up, he was 18, and his memories of the next 25 years intact. He could live his life again, avoiding the mistakes, making money from his knowledge of the future, seeking happiness until he dies at 43 and wakes up in college again. Replay is a brilliant speculation on time and life, warm, wise, and deeply satisfying. He has to keep reliving his life, and it's really good the way it plays out. It's a fantastic book. I think it's very insightful as well as being a really fun read. So Replay by Ken Grimwood, another one. This is one that probably you wouldn't necessarily regard as science fiction, because the science fiction in it is definitely there. It's a science fiction concept, but it's mostly really centering on a domestic situation. So this is Matt Haig's The Humans, which is a really good book. I've read about 5 of his books now, and they're not as good as this. So the other 4 that I've read. So this is really like the big thing he's written. I think is fantastic. There was a little bit of buzz relatively recently about The Midnight Library, which I think was a bit predictable. So it was good and had a really important message, but it was a bit laboured because it's so obvious what the point was going to be. This is, I think it's a fantastic book. He's written quite a lot about mental health in his stuff, and he does this really well in this. And there's a bit at the end where the alien in the story leaves some messages for the family, and it's just brilliantly done. So basically, this alien takes the form of this man who is a father and a husband, because he's been given a directive by his bosses, if you like. He has to stop humans from developing technology that they're not ready for, sort of thing. So that's the general plot of why the alien's on Earth, but it's kind of like seeing humans from an alien's point of view. It's really good. So Humans and Matt Haig. This one I've talked about loads of times, but I have to include it. This is a really good way of getting into science fiction, if you like. This is kind of like actually, I can't really tell you what kind of science fiction it is, because it's better if you go in blind, because it's such a thrilling ride, but it really is an amazing book. That's why I talk about it so much. Blake Crouch's Dark Matter. Sometimes it gets described as an airport novel, so the sort of book you might pick up at an airport that's like a thriller. And I get why, but it does sound a bit derogative, and it's much better than that. It's brilliantly written. The pace is incredible. You really are deep into it. You really care for the character, which is Jason Dessen. He gets abducted. He doesn't know why. He's unconscious, and he doesn't know why he's been abducted. And once he does realise why, then the plot really kicks in, and it gets really intense and really fun, really fun. And then the ending's really hectic. It's brilliant. So Dark Matter, Blake Crouch is just phenomenal. Okay, this is the start of a massive series, but actually I've only read this one and it's got a great ending, so even if it was one book, it would have worked really well. So this is the start of the Expanse series, Leviathan Wakes. So I need to read the rest of it, but I can tell you that this book is fantastic. I couldn't put it down. It's got a big canvas, so I'll read some of this. So humanity has colonised the solar system, Mars, the moon, the asteroid belt and beyond, but the stars are still out of our reach. Jim Holden is an officer on an ice miner making runs from the rings of Saturn to the mining stations of the belt. When he and his crew stumble upon a derelict ship, they find themselves in possession of a secret they never wanted. A secret that someone is willing to kill for, and kill on a scale unfathomable to Jim and his crew. War is brewing in the system unless Jim can find out who left the ship and why. And then there's a second plot going on at the same time. Detective Miller is looking for a girl, one girl in a system of billions, but her parents have money and money talks. When the trail leads him to this abandoned ship, and rebel sympathiser Holden, he realises that this girl may hold the key to everything. It's a fantastic book, really is. So Leviathan Wakes is a good suggestion for getting into it, even if it is the start of a massive series. You can read this on its own as well. So I think it's one you can enjoy without any... I've just realised what the term was. Without the acquired taste you might need for some of the more scientific stuff. I think that's the only difference between the ones I'm talking about and some of the more scientific stuff. Sometimes they're an acquired taste. I'm glad I've realised the term. So this is another one. It doesn't require much of experience of reading science fiction, but you'll love it. It's a brilliant book, The Martian by Andy Weir. So it's very famous. This might be an obvious entry into the video because it's such a massive book, partly because it's such a massive film, to be fair, but it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. So as you may know, Mark Watney is stranded on Mars. He's been left behind and the rest of his crew think he's dead, but he's not, and he tries to survive by himself using his scientific knowledge to keep himself alive on Mars. So brilliant, so brilliant. And I read this after seeing the film, and I thought I didn't need to read it because I thought, well, I know the plot, why do I need to read it? But it's written so well that it's such an enjoyable read regardless. So yeah, brilliant book. Okay, this is a book that I would definitely recommend to people that are into more modern books that touch on modern themes, I guess, but also might like Star Trek or might like the idea of different aliens, different kind of alien cultures. It's a beautifully written book, and it's The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I think this is a good way into science fiction, especially if you are a really strong reader who likes reading a lot. I think if you're a young person who likes reading literary fiction, I think you might enjoy The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And it's brilliantly done. I think it's really cool the way that Becky Chambers channels her love of Star Trek into inventing these really interesting alien cultures that are definitely from a modern perspective. There's some really interesting things about gender in there, and about alienness, and the way that the characters interact is really cool. So The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. And I'm going to finish with a couple of comedy books because I think that's a good way in. I love comedy, I love comedy science fiction, and it doesn't get talked about enough. So this is a book that has had a little bit of a buzz recently on BookTube, which is interesting, and this could be an obvious entry, but Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. A man is whisked off Earth by his friend who he didn't realise was an alien just before the Earth is blown up, and he goes around the galaxy discovering all these weird and wonderful things, and Douglas Adams basically makes you laugh for 150 pages. It's a very short book, but it's very funny and it's brilliant, it's classic, and I'm sure you know about it already. What you might not know about is Yahtzee Crosshaw's We'll Save the Galaxy for Food, which I've talked about a little bit on my channel, but you might not know this book, especially if this is the first time you've met my channel. So I'll just read the back. A not quite epic science fiction adventure about a down-in-as like galactic pilot caught in a cross-galaxy struggle for survival. Space travel just isn't what it used to be. With the invention of quantum teleportation, space heroes aren't needed anymore. When one particularly unlucky ex-adventurer masquerades as the famous pilot and hated public figure Jacques McEwen, he's sucked into ever-deepening corporate and political intrigue between space pirates, adorably deadly creatures, and a missing fortune in royalties. Saving the universe has never been this difficult. It's really funny. It's brilliant. I read it twice and loved it both times, and would definitely recommend it. He's a good writer anyway, Yahtzee Croshaw, but this one especially is I think it's his best book. I think it's awesome. So there we are. Bunch of books that could be your first books into science fiction if you're on the brink and you haven't read any science fiction yet, but you're curious. It's not really a scary genre because there's so much to it. There's so many different elements to it, and then once you get into it, then you might read some more books that are more science heavy, possibly. I'm guessing that's what makes it intimidating, but don't be intimidated by science fiction. It's the most amazing genre, and as I said, there's so much to it. So yeah, let me know below what you would suggest, and if you know those books, and if you're curious about those books, and what a beautiful day. Stay curious.